18 years old and in our society identify as a gay male. Maggie, you spoke earlier about how you don't know if society can handle this idea of gay marriage if it is allotted. I'd say that it took a radical movement in society for women to be able to get the vote. It took a radical movement in society for racial equality to become the norm in our society. My human sexuality instructor, Kathy Greaves, has told me that everyone's values and views change over time, and that if you ask someone the same question 5 years from now, they probably won't have the same answer. So why do you think society's views won't change?
I don't know, they might. I just don't think this is a good change, so that's what I'm out here doing. I don't believe that things are inevitable. I don't think anything's inevitable. I also don't think gay marriage is inevitable, right? The future hasn't happened yet, and we don't know what it will look like.
Thank you.
John, would you like to follow?
Maggie, you asked earlier, John, why marriage is a legal issue, but why is protecting marriage between a man and a woman is a legal issue when it is such a social and cultural standard discussed this evening?
I'm sorry, I'm getting deaf. Say the last part again. So
Why
it's a legal issue?
Why is it a legal issue to protect marriages between a man and a woman if it is such a social and cultural standard that we have discussed this evening?
Well, I guess the way I would answer it is that if marriage is not really related anymore to the idea that we're protecting, that these kinds of sexual unions uniquely protect children in an important way, both in the positive and the negative, I actually don't think government should be involved in marriage. So, that's my answer. I don't think that in a liberal society, government has the right to tell you that you should be loving in twosomes and not in threesomes. I don't think it has the right to tell you that sexual relationships are more important than other relationships. I'm deeply attracted to the idea of sisters raising children together. And I don't see why...
Without a father?
Well, fathers can be around too. But I don't see why... I just don't understand why those relationships couldn't... If people wanted to, and maybe not very many people, I don't understand why the government is telling you, you gotta be romantic, you gotta be sexual, you gotta be twosomes in order to get this set of benefits. If it's about caretaking, it should be about caretaking. And, at that point, it seems to me that you open up that's my actual view. The way we demonstrate how important relationships are in our tradition is that we don't surround them with a bunch of legal regulation. Why is the law involved in this thing? I think it is. I think there is an answer, and that's mine, anyway.
I would simply raise the question here about whether the government really is telling us these things. As far as the government is concerned, you can love as many people as you want. You just can't file joint tax returns with all of them. So, there's a distinction between what the government is doing legally and this broader issue of how many people you're allowed to love and what you're allowed to do with them and what children you're allowed to raise with them and so on. Now, you might think that the tax structure and all those other things, connecting it with marriage is a bad idea and it shouldn't be connected with marriage or we shouldn't be doing it at all. But that seems to me a somewhat different issue.
Hello, my name is Kathy Duncan and this is directed at Ms. Gallagher.
Of course.
I completely adore you and your YouTube videos. Earlier in your original argument,
Thank you, sorry.
Earlier in your original argument, you said that one of the reasons against gay marriage, making it legal, is that those who are opposed to it will be called bigots. How is this any different than saying the women's rights movement shouldn't have happened because now those who are against it are labeled chauvinists?
It's not, I gotta find another way of talking about it because people think that I'm saying, don't call me a name, don't call me a name. It's not the point. The point I'm trying to say is that the heart of the gay marriage idea is that these two kinds of unions are the same. And if you see a difference between these two kinds of unions, you're engaging in discrimination. There's something wrong with you, right? That's an idea that if we accept it, embrace it, and the law teaches it, means that the core features of marriage, as I understand it, right? The things that I think are the most important features of marriage. The people who see that, who believe that, think there's something ideal about a mother and father, the people and the institutions. Government is going to be used to try to minimize the influence of those people exactly in the same way that we do with racists. Now, what's the problem with that? I don't understand how we're going to have a society that teaches young men, put it this way, it's really hard to connect mothers and fathers. Okay? The default position of opposite sex sexuality is that you got, what we find a lot, I mean, you got lots of disconnected and fragmented families. It's hard to connect them, and it requires what it doesn't require. John is not going to be making fatherless children, no matter what he does sexually, unless, never mind. So he doesn't have to worry about that, right? So how are we going to connect these things in a culture that teaches that if you think it's ideal and it's connected and marriage has this purpose, that you're engaging in something like bigotry, right? So the problem for me is not, that you're doing something illegitimate. It's not that you're being mean to other people and I want you to stop. The problem is the core idea you're presenting is going to make it really hard for marriage to do its historic work, right? And the people and the institutions that are most committed to this older idea of marriage are going to be increasingly asked to change their understanding or be quiet about their understanding, because that view of marriage is going to be no longer really acceptable. Because we believe in equality. And we believe equality requires that we do not have this view of the meaning and purpose of human sexuality anymore and connect it to marriage in this way anymore.
And I will once again confess confusion here. Because I do not see how, because you started this with the idea that it's really hard to get fathers to remain committed to their children. I do not see how denying marriage to me and Mark or any other gay couple is going to make some father more committed to his children. I don't get that at all.
We'll work on it. Maybe when we're done with the book, you'll see it.
Hi, Maggie, I just wanted to tell you that in preparing for you coming here to get this debate, I did a lot of research into sort of the scientific evidence that there is for sort of same-sex couples as effective parents, how those children
You saw the USA Today article.
I've been reading scholarly articles.
No, I'm not sure you
that are
have.
peer-reviewed. And I just want to point out that you made it pretty clear that you don't read a lot of peer-reviewed articles because in your opening statement there were a lot of falsities there, and there are. And I have.
Is there a question?
Yes, I have a question. Yes, I do. My
I
question.
read a lot of peer-reviewed journal articles, so your first statement that I made it clear I don't is false. Let me just put it that way.
Okay.
But go on, let's go to our
Okay.
disagreement.
I'd love to carry that on through email. That'd be great. Because I do want to point out too that there's an interesting thing from your past that is going to be illuminating, to use one of my favorite words that you used already. You wrote an article back in the New York Times during Dan Quayle's era when he made this statement about Murphy Brown being a single-parent mother. And I just want to know how your experiences as an unwed mother have affected your root and feelings in this issue. Because I've noticed a lot of your statements tonight are probably coming from that experience that you have. And I think that would help a lot of us identify with you as a human, which is the biggest problem with this whole issue.
Well, that's very kind of you. I've written about it extensively, and if I had more than 20 minutes,